My wife kept receiving flowers from an unknown sender. The note inside changed everything. The first bouquet arrived on my wife's birthday. I didn't send it. That should have bothered me. But what really bothered me was the look on her face when she read the card. She went completely pale. Then she tore the card in half and threw it away before I could read it. When I asked who sent the flowers, she smiled and said, "Probably someone from work." I believed her. Then another bouquet arrived 2 weeks later. Then another. Always the same flowers. White lilies. Always delivered when I wasn't supposed to be home. And every single time, my wife destroyed the note before I could see it. So yes, I started thinking my wife was having an affair. Then the fifth bouquet arrived while she was in the shower. I opened the card. There were only 9 words written inside. "You have his daughter. I just want mine back." I read it 3 times. My wife and I don't have a daughter. We have a 6-year-old son. Or at least, that's what I thought the sender meant. My name is Mark. I'm 37. My wife, Claire, is 35. We've been married for 9 years. We have 1 child, our son Ethan. Before the flowers started arriving, I would have described our marriage as boring in the best possible way. We weren't one of those couples posting anniversary paragraphs online every year. We worked, paid bills, argued about what to watch, took Ethan to soccer practice, ordered takeout every Friday. Normal married life. I trusted Claire completely, which is why I ignored the first bouquet. It arrived on her 35th birthday. I had already bought her flowers that morning. Sunflowers. They're her favorite. So when a delivery driver arrived that afternoon carrying an enormous bouquet of white lilies, I joked, "Looks like someone is trying to make me look bad." Claire laughed. Then she opened the card. Her expression changed. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. But I saw it. Fear. Who sent them? She folded the card. People from work. That's nice. Yeah. Then she walked into the kitchen and threw the card away. I didn't think much about it. Until 2 weeks later. Another bouquet arrived. White lilies again. This time, I came home early and found them sitting on the kitchen counter. More flowers. Claire looked startled. "Oh, yeah, your coworkers really love you." She forced a laugh. "Apparently. What's the occasion?" "No occasion." "Who sent them?" "I don't know. That was different. Last time, she'd said coworkers. Now she didn't know." I pointed that out. She shrugged. "Maybe they forgot to sign the card." There was no card anywhere. I checked the trash later. I know that sounds ridiculous, but something felt wrong. I found torn pieces of thick, white paper underneath a coffee filter. I could only make out 2 words. Remember and promise. I didn't confront her. Not yet. The third bouquet arrived 11 days later. Same flowers. White lilies. Claire immediately carried them outside. I watched through the window as she shoved them into our garbage bin. That night, I asked, "Are you going to tell me what's happening with the flowers?" "Nothing is happening. Someone keeps sending them." "I know. And you're throwing them away." "I don't like lilies." "That isn't why." She became defensive. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" "I haven't accused you of anything. You're acting like I did something." "Then tell me who is sending them." "I don't know." "Show me the card." There wasn't one. That was a lie. I had seen her holding it. I told her that. She stared at me. Then she said, "Mark, please drop it." That was when I started thinking about another man. I hated myself for it. But what else was I supposed to think? Secret flowers. Hidden notes. Lies. A wife who suddenly carried her phone everywhere. Yes, that started too. Claire had never been protective of her phone before. Then suddenly she changed her passcode. She started taking calls outside. One evening, I walked into the bedroom while she was on the phone. She immediately hung up. "Who was that?" "My mom." "Everything okay?" "Fine." 20 minutes later, her mother called our house asking if Claire was available. Another lie. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I asked my best friend, David, what he thought. He tried to be careful. Flowers don't automatically mean cheating. I know, but hiding them isn't great. I told him about the phone, the notes, the lies. David sighed. "You need to ask her directly." So I did. That night, after Ethan went to bed, I sat across from Claire. "Are you seeing someone?" She looked genuinely shocked. "What? Are you having an affair?" "No." "Then explain the flowers." "I can't." That answer hit harder than yes. "You can't. It's complicated." "Who is sending them?" "I don't know for sure." "Then who do you think is sending them?" She looked away. "Claire, I don't want to talk about this. You're my wife." "I know. Someone is sending flowers to my house and frightening you. You're lying to me about phone calls. How am I not involved?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because this started before you." "What started?" She shook her head. "Please trust me." I laughed. "I did." "Then you started lying." She slept in the guest room that night. The fourth bouquet arrived at her office. I only learned about it because one of Claire's co-workers, Jessica, mentioned it accidentally. We ran into each other at a grocery store. She laughed and said, "Claire's mystery admirer is really persistent." My stomach dropped. Mystery admirer? Jessica's smile disappeared. "You didn't know?" I pretended I did. Apparently, flowers had been arriving at Claire's office too. For months. Not weeks. Months. Claire had lied about how long this had been happening. That evening, I confronted her. She started crying. She swore again there was no affair. "Then tell me who he is." "I don't know if it's a he." That stopped me. "What?" She immediately realized she'd said too much. "Who do you think is sending them?" Mark, please. Is it a woman? Silence. Claire, I need more time. For what? To figure something out. Figure out what? She wouldn't tell me. At that point, I was angry enough that I considered leaving. I even packed a bag. Then I looked into Ethan's bedroom. He was asleep with one leg hanging off the bed. I unpacked. I told myself I would give Claire 1 week. Then the 5th bouquet arrived. It was a Saturday. Claire was upstairs showering. Ethan was at my parents' house. The doorbell rang. White lilies. The delivery driver handed them to me. My hands were shaking before I even opened the card. I knew I shouldn't. It was addressed to Claire. But after months of lies, I was done. I opened it. 9 words. You have his daughter. I just want mine back. I stared at the card. His daughter. Mine. None of it made sense. Then I heard Claire behind me. What are you doing? I turned around. She saw the card. Every bit of color disappeared from her face. Who is she? Claire didn't answer. Who sent this? Mark, do you have another child? No. Then what does this mean? She walked toward me. Give me the card. I stepped backward. No. Please. Tell me the truth. She started crying. Not quietly. She collapsed into one of our kitchen chairs and covered her face. I waited. Finally, she whispered, I think it's my mother. I actually laughed because the answer made so little sense. Your mother? Not the woman you know. I stopped. Claire looked up at me. My biological mother. I didn't understand. Claire's parents, Susan and Robert, lived 40 minutes away. I had known them for 11 years. They were at our wedding. Robert helped me build Ethan's crib. Susan watched our son every Wednesday. What are you talking about? Claire wiped her face. Susan isn't my biological mother. Okay. I was still confused. Were you adopted? No. That answer was worse. Then what? Claire took a long breath. My father had an affair. I sat down. It happened 36 years earlier. Robert was 28. He and Susan had been married for 3 years. Susan had suffered 2 miscarriages. Their marriage was struggling. Robert had an affair with a 21-year-old woman named Diane. Diane became pregnant. Robert ended the affair. Months later, Diane gave birth to Claire. According to the story Claire had been told, Diane suffered severe postpartum depression and eventually decided she couldn't raise a child. Robert took custody. Susan stayed with him. And somehow, Susan raised the baby her husband had with another woman. That baby was Claire. I was stunned. You've known this since I was 16. Why didn't you tell me? I was ashamed. Of what? You didn't do anything. You don't understand my family. Apparently, Robert and Susan never wanted anyone to know. To everyone else, Claire was Susan's biological daughter. Even some relatives believed it. Diane disappeared from Claire's life. Claire was told never to contact her. Why? My dad said she was unstable. Did you ever try? Claire hesitated. When I was 23. That was before we met. She found Diane online. Sent her a message. Diane never responded. Claire tried again a year later. Nothing. Eventually, she stopped. Then, 6 months ago, Diane contacted her. She was dying. Cancer. She wanted to see Claire. Is that who you've been talking to? Claire nodded. Why hide that from me? Because my dad made me promise. I stared at her. You're 35. I know. He doesn't get to decide who you talk to. You don't know him like I do. That sentence bothered me. I knew Robert as a quiet, gentle man. He fixed things around our house. Took Ethan fishing. Made terrible jokes. What didn't I know? Claire said when Diane contacted her, she told Robert. He became furious. He said Diane was dangerous. He begged Claire not to respond. Susan became hysterical. She told Claire contacting Diane would destroy their family. So Claire promised she wouldn't. Then she did anyway. Why the flowers? I don't know. You think Diane is sending them? I did. But she says she isn't. That was when I showed Claire the note again. You have his daughter. I just want mine back. Something didn't fit. If Diane wanted Claire back, why write his daughter? Why not my daughter? And why send flowers instead of simply contacting her? I asked Claire what the previous note said. She finally showed me. She had kept them. Every single one. They were hidden inside a box in her closet. The first, some promises are built on lies. The second, ask him what happened the night she left. The third, you were never abandoned. The fourth, your mother kept her promise. Your father didn't. Then the fifth, you have his daughter. I just want mine back. I read them in order. Suddenly, I wasn't worried about an affair anymore. I was worried about my father-in-law. Claire, what exactly did your dad tell you happened to Diane? She left. Where? I don't know. When I was a baby. Did you ever hear Diane's version? Claire went silent. She hadn't. They had spoken several times, but Claire never asked. She was too afraid. I told her to call Diane. She refused. So I asked, do you want the truth? Yes. Then stop protecting everyone who refuses to give it to you. She called. Diane answered. Claire put her on speaker. The first thing Diane said was, did you get the flowers? Claire and I looked at each other. You sent them? No. Then how do you know? A long pause. Then Diane said, because I know who did. Who? Your sister. Claire laughed nervously. I don't have a sister. Diane started crying. Yes, sweetheart. You do. And that was the moment the entire story changed. Her name was Rebecca. She was 38, 2 years older than Claire. And she was Susan's biological daughter. I couldn't understand the timeline. Neither could Claire. Diane explained. Susan had not suffered 2 miscarriages. She had suffered 1. Her second pregnancy resulted in a healthy baby girl, Rebecca. But Rebecca was born with a serious heart defect. She required multiple surgeries. Robert and Susan were overwhelmed financially. Around the same time, Robert began his affair with Diane. Then Claire was born. According to Diane, Robert told her he wanted to leave Susan and raise Claire with her. Diane believed him. For several months, they planned a future together. Then something happened. Rebecca became critically ill. Susan discovered the affair, and instead of leaving Robert, she made him choose his marriage and Rebecca, or Diane and Claire. Robert chose Susan, but he wanted Claire too. Diane's voice shook as she explained what happened next. Robert convinced her to let him take baby Claire for a weekend. He said Susan wanted to meet her. He promised to return Claire Sunday evening. He never did. Instead, Robert filed for emergency custody. He claimed Diane was unstable. He used her history of depression against her. He had money, lawyers, a stable home. Diane had almost nothing. She fought. She lost. Then Robert offered her a deal. Stop fighting for Claire, and he would continue paying for Rebecca's medical treatment. I interrupted. Why would Diane care about Rebecca? Silence. Then Diane said, because Rebecca is my daughter too. Claire looked at me. Neither of us understood. Diane continued. Robert wasn't Rebecca's biological father. Susan couldn't have children after her miscarriage. Rebecca had been adopted privately, and Diane was her biological mother. I thought I had misheard. Diane had given birth to Rebecca at 19. She wasn't prepared to raise a child. Through a private arrangement, Susan and Robert adopted her. 2 years later, Robert tracked Diane down. That was how the affair started. He had already adopted her first daughter. Then he fathered her second. I felt sick. Claire whispered, Rebecca is my half-sister? Yes. Same mother, different fathers. And Rebecca had discovered the truth only a year earlier after taking a DNA test. She contacted Diane. Diane told her everything. Rebecca was furious. Not at Claire. At Robert. Because Robert had spent their entire childhood pretending both girls were Susan's biological children while keeping Diane completely erased. Why didn't Rebecca contact me directly? She tried. Claire frowned. No, she didn't. She sent you a message months ago. Claire checked her phone. Nothing. Then I remembered something. Your father. Claire stared at me. Robert knew her passwords. He helped manage the family's phone plan. We didn't know if he had actually intercepted anything. But suddenly, Claire remembered that Robert had borrowed her phone around the time Rebecca supposedly contacted her. So Rebecca started sending flowers instead. She knew Claire would receive them personally. The lilies had a meaning too. Diane's favorite flowers. Rebecca wanted Claire to start asking questions. Then I asked about the final note. You have his daughter. I just want mine back. Diane explained. Rebecca wasn't talking to Claire. She was talking to Susan. The flowers weren't intended as romantic messages. They were accusations. Rebecca believed Susan had taken both of Diane's daughters. One legally, one through Robert. And now that Diane was dying, Rebecca wanted the truth exposed before it died with her. 2 days later, we met Rebecca. The resemblance between her and Claire was immediate. Same eyes, same smile, even the same habit of twisting a ring when nervous. Claire cried before either of them spoke. Rebecca did too. They hugged for almost a minute. Then Rebecca apologized for the flowers. She said she didn't know how else to get Claire's attention without Robert interfering. I asked why she made the note so cryptic. She looked embarrassed. I wanted her to ask questions. I didn't want to dump 35 years of family secrets onto a card attached to flowers. Fair enough. Then came the confrontation with Robert. Claire invited her parents to our house. She didn't tell them Rebecca would be there. When Robert walked into our living room and saw her, he stopped. Susan began crying immediately. Nobody had to explain. They knew. Claire asked one question. Did Diane abandon me? Robert said nothing. Dad, did my mother abandon me? Finally, he whispered. No. Claire started crying. Susan tried to explain. She said they loved Claire. She said she raised her as her own. Claire turned toward her. You are my mother. Susan looked surprised. Claire continued. But you let me believe another woman threw me away. Susan broke down. Robert admitted most of Diane's story was true. He insisted he believed Claire would have a better life with them. Maybe she did. That's the complicated part. Claire had a good childhood. She was loved. She had opportunities Diane couldn't have provided. But none of that required the lie. They could have told her where she came from. Instead, they made Diane into a monster so nobody would question why she disappeared. Claire asked Robert whether he ever loved Diane. He said yes. Susan left the room. Even after 35 years, that answer hurt her. Then Rebecca asked, Did you ever think about what you did to her? Robert looked at the floor. I thought about it every day. Rebecca replied, Thinking isn't the same as fixing it. Nobody spoke after that. Claire met Diane in person the following weekend. I went with her, but waited outside initially. They spent 4 hours together. When Claire finally asked me to come in, both women had been crying. Diane was much thinner than I expected. Cancer had taken almost everything from her. But when she looked at Claire, her entire face changed. She touched Claire's cheek. Then she said, I always wondered what you looked like when you laughed. That broke me. Diane died 4 months later. Claire and Rebecca were with her. So was I? Robert was not. Claire hasn't completely cut her parents off. Her relationship with Susan is slowly recovering. Robert is different. She speaks to him occasionally because she still loves him. But something fundamental disappeared. Trust, I think. You can love the person who raised you and still recognize that they harmed you. Rebecca is part of our lives now. Ethan calls her Aunt Becca. She comes over for dinner at least twice a month. And every year on Diane's birthday, the sisters buy white lilies. The same flowers I once thought proved my wife was having an affair. Sometimes I think about how close I came to leaving Claire. I had already imagined another man. Secret hotel rooms. Deleted messages. A second life. There was a second life. Just not the one I expected. My wife wasn't hiding a lover. She was hiding a mother. And the unknown person sending flowers wasn't trying to steal my wife from me. She was trying to give Claire back a piece of herself that had been stolen decades earlier. I still don't think Claire should have lied to me. We've talked about that a lot. She says she spent her whole childhood learning that family secrets were protected by silence. When Diane returned, Claire fell back into the only pattern she knew. Hide it. Protect everyone. Ask questions later. We're working on that. But there's one thing I'll never forget. The fifth bouquet. The one that finally made me open the card. You have his daughter. I just want mine back. I thought those words were proof that my marriage was about to end. Instead, they exposed a secret that existed before my wife was even old enough to speak. And they gave her something she never knew she had. A sister. A mother who never stopped wanting her. And finally, the truth about why she was taken away. The flowers stopped arriving after Diane died. Except once. On the first anniversary of her death, someone knocked on our door. There was a bouquet waiting outside. White lilies. Claire looked at me. For a second, I saw that old fear return. Then she opened the card. It said, for both of her daughters. Love, Becca. Claire smiled. And for the first time since those flowers started arriving, she didn't throw them away.